over the weekend, the New York State soccer state championships were held, both for boys and girls. And there were a number of Section 5 teams who attended. None of them won. Well, hold on. One of them did win, sorta. See, Fillmore and Hamilton played one heck of a Class D state championship over the weekend. A 4-4 soccer game. Fillmore got up 3-1 early in the second half. Hamilton came roaring back, 3 goals in a row, took a 4-3 lead late, and then Fillmore got a goal with a couple minutes to go, I think less than 2 minutes to go, to tie the game and force overtime. What happened after that is why I'm talking about this game. So in overtime, neither team scored. The game 4-4 following overtime. In every other round of high school soccer playoffs, again, boys and girls, there's a penalty shootout to see who moves on. But not in the state championship. See, in the state championship, they end those games in a tie after overtime. Because, and this is what I was told years ago when I covered a couple of these in person, that the state committee doesn't feel like penalty kicks is an appropriate way to finish a state championship. And I can understand that to a degree. You play a game of soccer, penalty kicks is like a free throw shootout or a field goal kicking contest. It's a part of the game, but it's not a large part of the game. So you would like a championship decided by traditional play on the field. So I get the idea of not wanting to go to PKs to decide a state championship. But to be fair, the World Cup decides their championships with penalty kicks. Remember Brandy Chastain? That great moment that inspired women's soccer players and girls who wanted to play soccer everywhere? That's a penalty kick shootout to decide a championship. The Champions League decides their final with a championship. It's happened, or with penalty kicks. It's happened 10 times. If the Champions League and the World Cup think it's okay for penalty kicks to decide a championship, then I'm pretty sure New York State high school soccer can follow suit. But that's not what they've elected to do. So Fillmore and Hamilton, at the end of their overtime, ended a tie. It's co-champions. So remember, this is what New York State soccer thinks is the better choice. Well, let me show you what happened as that game ended in a tie. Here's the end of it right here. These are the final seconds. The broadcaster, give him credit, who's calling this game for NFHS. Appreciate those guys for supplying the video. Look how excited he is. He's trying to play it up. But look at the kids in the field. Do you see kids acting like they just won a championship? You can say co-championship all you want. I don't see anyone there acting like they won a championship. Now look, here's the trophy ceremony, right? This is when Fillmore is going to receive their championship trophy. There's a little arms raised. Now this is Hamilton getting their trophy. Funny thing is when you do co-champions, because you're not prepared for that, they actually have a champion's plaque and a runner-up plaque. They gave Fillmore the runner-up plaque and they gave Hamilton the champion plaque. Do you see anyone there acting like they've won a championship? Anyone there look like they're super excited? That they feel like that what has happened there is a good thing? Something that's benefiting anyone? You don't. You see two teams that ended in a tie and don't really know how to handle it. And this is why I have a problem with this. High school sports should be about learning. How many times have we heard, even with NCAA Division I sports, where athletes at the highest level are getting paid millions of dollars now, coaches and administrators pounding it into our head that these are not athletes first, they are student athletes. Well, at the high school level, that's 100% even more true. These are student athletes, right? So the idea of high school sports is to teach kids, correct? You want kids to learn things. There are so many good things that kids get from playing a sport. They learn how to communicate. They learn how to work as a team. They learn how to take guidance from a coach. They learn how to manage a schedule. They learn how to work hard. And they learn how to perform under pressure. These are all vital skills that all of us in the world who have played sports at that level have benefited from. But one of the best things that I've always thought about high school sports, especially at the varsity level, is that you can take a kid who's about to be sent off to college to exist on their own, to fight for themselves. Granted, it's not getting a job and buying a house and all that stuff, but when you send a kid to college, especially the ones who go away and live on their own, that is a transition. They're about to be out in the world 80% of the way, right? So you have these kids that are about to start their solo lives. And You have the situation when you play in a state championship or even a sectional championship where the kid will feel like everything is on the line. Their life was at stake. This is the most important thing that's ever happened to them. And then they will either win or they will lose. And no matter what happens, the kid will learn a lesson from it. The beauty of high school sports is that you could put a kid in a spot where he feels like the end of the world will happen if they lose, and then he has to manage the emotions if that happens. But nobody loses a job. Nobody loses a house. No one gets divorced. There are no real world consequences to that loss. It just feels like there are real world consequences. But that's great. That's what you want a kid to do. He's in high school, or she. They're supposed to learn. And when you lose, you learn how to manage that. How do you deal with the feeling? How do you refocus? How do you get back up? How do you go back to doing what you were doing that you just failed at, even if it is failing at the highest level? What do you do differently? Do you change anything? How do you manage the emotions? These are all skills, just like all the other things I talked about, that are vitally important in the world. And you have a chance to give this kid an opportunity to do it. If you go 2-18 in a season, you don't learn that same lesson. Yeah, you learn a different lesson about what happens if nothing's going right and how do you handle that. Sure, that's a lesson too. But this is a unique lesson that these kids, these Fillmore and Hamilton kids who played in the state championship, had the opportunity to win and lose a game and learn from it. But by tying and having co-champions, they learn nothing. It is not anything that changes them. There's no impact. Where in life do you tie? There's no two people who get a job. Either there's a winner or a loser, and you have to learn how to manage that. And the kids had an opportunity to learn that lesson, and it was taken from them because administrators, even if you want to defend it, believe that a penalty kick shootout is not a worthy way to end a championship. The problem is not about the penalty kicks. The problem is that the emphasis is on the championship and not the kids learning. Remember, even if you win, that's a lesson to be learned. How do you deal with success? Do you get complacent or do you continue to work hard? My daughter won a state championship playing high school volleyball. I got to tell you, she was a junior, and when her team came back the next year, I think there was a little bit of feeling good about ourselves. And they thought they would just roll through teams like they did the year before. And you know what? Their first match, they got down 10-0, and there was a quick lesson that things had changed. You can learn a lesson from winning just as easily as you learn from losing, but you don't learn anything from having a tie. So why are we protecting these kids? Why are we preventing these kids from learning this lesson? What's the benefit? Because my assessment is that there is too much emphasis placed on the championship and not the lesson. High school sports should not be about championships. Now, look, there are some places, Ohio, Texas, whatever, where high school football teams are big business and are significantly valued in terms of the community. So then, yeah, if you lose a game, a coach might get fired. There are places where that happens. It doesn't happen in New York State. For the most part, high school coaches at every level are people who are generally volunteering their time. Sure, they get paid. They don't get paid anything worth the hours they put in. Most high school coaches, and when I say most, I mean 95+%. The administrator and the team is more thankful for the coach to be doing the work than the coach is thankful to have the job. So this is not about keeping jobs or promoting careers. This is about coaches and people who are donating their time to give the kids an opportunity to play. Yeah, they like the thrill. They want to win and all that stuff. But the goal of the sport should be to teach the kids something that they can learn and use going forward. And when you tie, you take that away. There is no reason why you can't have a penalty kick shootout to give these kids an opportunity to learn that lesson, to feel that pain, to feel that joy. Because a tie is nothing. And they do this in hockey too, by the way. And it's not just at the state championship level. They technically do this for sectionals too. It even feels kind of worse because for a sectional championship in soccer, if there is a tie at the end of overtime, they will often stop the game. They will have a ceremony where both teams get a trophy, both teams get patches, or sometimes they give one team the trophy or the other team the patches. They figure out some sort of ceremony. And then they have the penalty kick shootout to determine who's on the states. Now, at least in that situation, there still is a winner or a loser, and the kids understand, even if the banners later on will say you were co-champion, none of the kids care about that. They're going to know who won and lost the game based on the penalty kicks, and at least you'll still have the lesson. But you don't get that at the state championship level. And emphasizing the championship or prioritizing the championship in New York State is the wrong way to go. Think about all the movies in the world where the kid or not a kid, the person grows up and all they ever do is talk about the championship they won in high school, how great they were, how they were all-state, all-star, whatever it is. Those people are mocked in the movies, right? No one wants to be that person. You don't want the highlight of your life to be the championship you won when you're 18. So if that's the way championships are generally treated, then why are we putting so much emphasis on it, on how it is won, on who wins, at the expense of what you can teach a kid, of the lesson they can potentially learn? There is too unique an opportunity here for a kid to take it away because of you don't think the method of deciding a championship is worthwhile. That's the thing. Like I said, there are a lot of kids out there who go 2-18 and have to deal with that lesson. But the kids who go to the state championship, there's so few of them. That is such a unique opportunity to be able to put yourself in that amount of pressure. Can you perform when everything is on the line, when all you have worked for, everything you've been doing and training for is right in front of you? Can you perform? And that should go all the way to the end of the game being decided. It shouldn't stop just because the methodology available for that particular sport is not satisfactory. No one stops basketball games when they get to overtime. No one stops football games when they get to overtime. And I understand that as opposed to hockey and soccer, the ability for players to rest is much more available in those sports, which makes it easier. I would never, ever sit here and tell you that I think either soccer or hockey should continue playing a championship but not go to penalties, because obviously the physical harm potentially available to kids is far too great. That supersedes winning a championship or learning a lesson, obviously. But the solution that you have here that is good enough for every other level of play in that sport, for the wildest and greatest professional and worldwide championships that soccer and hockey allow, because New York State does this for hockey too. When they all feel like this method to break a tie, going to penalty kicks, shots, whatever you want to call it, is fine, then I'm pretty sure it's okay for New York State. And at the very least, let the kid learn the lesson. Give them a chance to improve as a person. These championships and high school sports are not about making athletes better. Yeah, that's something that happens a lot of the time. But these sports exist to give kids another opportunity to learn something about themselves and how they operate in the world. And when you get to a state championship, there are so few kids that get that chance. Don't take that from them by quitting in the end. Let the kids go to penalties. Let them have a championship. Let them lose a championship. Because these are all things kids are going to have to be prepared for. In this world where emotional health and mental health is such a priority, I think we need to give kids a chance to learn to test the limits of that when they're younger, to let them understand how to handle that, and maybe even to figure out if there's a problem. I'd rather know that my child needs a different level or type of emotional support at 18 years old than when they're 28, when there might be real world consequences to not handling your emotional health. And then this is not about weakness. This is not about proving that someone can't handle it. Emotional and mental health in this day and age, I think, has been appropriately termed and approached as something to treat the same as if you have a cold or if you have a strained ankle. It's a thing that can happen to everyone that needs to be addressed in a particular way to heal it. You have an opportunity, a rare opportunity, to put a kid, at least from their point of view, in the type of pressure that will reveal things about them that I'm sure will be beneficial to them, that usually will be beneficial to them going forward in life. Don't take that away. Don't take that away. And every year this happens, and every year I'm bothered by it. It's just such a waste of time to bring these two teams together, to have them work all year long, to get to this game that matters more than any other one, and then to end it that way. You saw how the kids looked. There was no excitement. There was no emotion. It was just nothing. Because that's what the ties are. That's what co-champions are. It's nothing. And if you're going to give a kid an opportunity to learn, even if, look, when you can bring a kid to a practice, they have a chance to learn. So you want them every single time they're in a high school event, the goal is to learn something, to improve themselves. And in practice, you learn all kinds of different lessons about how to work hard, how to, again, build a team, how to listen to a coach, how to understand a role, how to appreciate what your role is and do it to the best of your ability, even if it isn't the role that you potentially dreamed about or had as a goal going in. These are all things you learn in a practice. In a championship game, you have an opportunity to see how you hold up, how you perform with, in at least in your mind, everything on the line. And I want my kid to have the opportunity to see what happens there, to learn about it. And when it's taken away, it just feels to me like something was lost. That an opportunity for a kid to learn a lesson is out the window. Every year I talk about this. I don't think New York State has any plans to change anything. I will again throw this out there on social media for New York State to see if there's any sort of wavering or thought. But every single year, the State High School Association blows it when they have two teams who come together to play for a championship and end the game without anybody getting anything out of it. And for the most part, look, there were 4 or 8 goal scorers in an amazing game. I'm sure there were ups and downs and there were highs and there were things learned. So it wasn't nothing, but there should have been an appropriate ending. And the kids should have had that opportunity.
Get the Rochester First streaming app today for everything you love from News 8 On Demand. Plus exclusive shows you won't see anywhere else. Search ROC and download for free on Roku, Amazon Fire, and Apple TV.